It's from your face.
Yes, in that you can only see it manifest if you have faith.
Yes.
But what is the source of that power? What is exactly that is the thus come one's secret? According to the OTT, we already read this. I don't know how much you guys go back and read it and reread it and reread it, but
you can take your wisdom to challenge everything.
Actually, it's your life itself. Your life itself is the Gohonzon's secret and transcendental power. Okay? I tell you why I say that. I don't know what President Ikeda is going to say next. But if I go to the orally transmitted teachings,
Are you there, Scott?
to the 16th chapter, okay, which is what we've begun to discuss here, right? We're past the expedient means. If I go to the 16th chapter and I read, I believe it's point 3. Let me just double check that.
Chapter 16.
Okay. Yes, it's point 2.
Okay, the secret.
Thus says point 2 regarding the words, you must listen carefully and hear of the thus come one's secret and his transcendental powers. Now, doesn't that sound mystic? Doesn't that sound mystic and beyond the comprehension or the capacity of normal people?
Out of yourself.
Yes. So Nichiren is now going to clarify these deep, deep words of the lifespan chapter. He's going to say, he doesn't quote words and phrases or anything else. He goes straight into the record of the orally transmitted teaching says. And I love this passage. Almost, this first point and point 2 are 2 of my favorite points in all of the teachings of Nichiren Daishonin. Okay, because they qualify who I am. All right? They don't leave me in awe of who he is. They qualify who I am.
The point 2, right?
Point 2 now.
And point.
Ready? He's saying, point 2, regarding the words, you must listen carefully and hear of the thus come one's secret and his transcendental powers. What does transcendental mean? We know secret means unknown, but what's transcendental? Beyond the realm of human ordinary reality. Okay? Transcendent is the key word. Okay? The record of the orally transmitted teachings says this passage supports the concept of one who is eternally endowed with the 3 bodies. Okay, what is that? What's that say? What's that mean? What does that mean? This passage supports the concept of one who is eternally endowed with the 3 bodies. What's the concept of one who is eternally endowed with three bodies? Buddha. Buddha, right? We're always, none of you hardly answered that, but you do know the answer, right?
Yep.
Are you with me?
Yeah.
You are with me. You're sure? Sleep. Okay.
Point 2.
Then, point 2.
Yeah.
You got it. You're there now, right? All right. So, he says, this passage supports the concept of one who is eternally endowed with the 3 bodies. Buddha, exactly as you are, right? He knows, and his teaching is that we are all exactly that right now. Okay, he says various interpretations on these words have been transmitted. So there have been, through the ages, countless other clerics or men of wisdom or seekers of the way, okay, including Chentai, including Dingyo, right? They've all made comment on this as well. But don't forget, what did the Nichiren retitle this chapter?
This one is the...
This is a point in which Nichiren actually retitled or actually restructured the meaning of the lifespan chapter, because he says it's specifically applicable in this manner in a particular time frame, which is latter day of the law. So he's saying, okay, so he says, the record of the orally transmitted teaching says this passage supports the concept of one who is eternally endowed with the 3 bodies. Various interpretations on these words have been transmitted. As for the transcendental powers, the actions that are carried out instant by instant, motion by motion. Think of your life in digital all of a sudden, okay? Frame by frame, right? The actions that are being carried out instant by instant, motion by motion, by us living beings are regarded as transcendental powers. The functionality of life itself, the aspect of being a temporary gathering of the five components, when those five components gather to become the form of an entity, okay, they express through the power that we call life, what is also described as transcendental powers. The power of life is the beginning and end of transcendental powers. There are no transcendental powers beyond the power that's predicated in your life itself, exactly as it is, with nothing added.
Nothing added.
Okay? He says, thus the voices of the wardens of hell, punishing the offenders, are all to be termed transcendental powers. Do you understand why he goes to that extreme? No. Why does he go from talking about transcendental powers of the Buddha to immediately talking about wardens of hell?
It is about realization or not.
Of course, what he's describing here is the realization and description of the Buddha. So what he's saying is that the wardens of hell are all Buddhas. There's nothing that is not Buddha. He says so. Okay? You get it? By us are regarded as transcendental powers. Anything that's life, anything that moves, anything that has entity. Okay? Power, or pardon me, appearance, nature, entity, that combination of appearance and nature, right? That temporary gathering of the five components. As for the transcendental powers, the actions that are carried out instant by instant, motion by motion, by us living beings, are regarded as transcendental powers. Thus, if that's the case, the voices of the wardens of hell punishing the offenders who are all to be termed transcendental powers. The countless things in the 3,000 realms that undergo the process of birth, abiding, change, and extinction. What's that really? That's another term for birth, old age, sickness, and death, correct? All right? Are all in themselves embodiments of transcendental powers. So he's saying all the little things, everything that you look at as ordinary, is what's being referred to as a secret and transcendental power, because you don't understand the true nature and influence of its origin and eternal existence. Okay? So he says, but in the view of Nichiren and his followers, okay, the realization and understanding of the concept of attainment of Buddhahood in one's present form is meant by one's secret and his and transcendental powers. So do you understand what he just said there? What did he just say there?
It's a secret.
But in the view of Nichiren and his followers, which means those that have faith in my teaching, we look at this and realize and understand that the concept of attainment of Buddhahood in one's present form is what is meant by the thus come one's secret and his transcendental powers. Because the thus come one that's being referred to is what? Thus come one.
Thus come one is
No, specifically. He has renamed this chapter. The lifespan of the thus come one, Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. Okay, so he's talking about the eternal Buddha that has fused with the law that was taught by the law, the original Buddha that aspired to make all other things equal to himself. That eternal Buddha nature that exists within all things equally, unequivocally. Okay, that's what he's talking about. So he's saying, but in the view of Nichiren and his followers, the realization and understanding of the concept of attainment of Buddhahood in one's present form is what is meant by the thus come one's secret and his transcendental powers. What is this concept of attainment of Buddhahood in one's present form? Where is that described succinctly, and what is that process? Going to meetings, chanting a lot of Daimoku?
No.
Trying to propagate the law?
No.
Those are all the actions taken by. Okay? What's he saying? What's he talking about? It's just on the previous point. The one I read to you over and over and over and over and over and over again. The only one I really care about you ever understanding and about this whole book that there are 6 stages, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, and we understand.
Yes,
That the first stage is being that in theory. The second stage is having been awakened. The third stage is progressing. The fourth stage is doing everything but understanding what's really going on. The fifth stage is to have advanced enough to be of the same mind as Nichiren. And the sixth stage is to realize there's no difference between you and Nichiren. That you always have been the Buddha.
Yeah.
That's what Nichiren calls attaining Buddhahood in one's present form. Right? He says there's nothing more than that. If I've read you so many times in the Gosho, the perception of your true identity is the attainment of Buddhahood. Right? Not the theoretical perception, the actual perception. The theoretical perception will precede the actual perception. The theoretical perception is something that you'll be able to think about and contemplate and make sense of. The actual realization will happen in a moment, will never reverse.
Yes.
Do you understand?
Yes.
Let me reread it again. As for the transcendental powers, the actions that are carried out instant by instant, motion by motion, by us living beings are regarded as transcendental powers. Thus the voices of the wardens of hell punishing the offenders are all to be termed transcendental powers. The countless things in the 3,000 realms that undergo the process of birth, abiding, change, and extinction are all in themselves embodiments of transcendental powers. But in the view of Nichiren and his followers, the realization and understanding of the concept of attainment of Buddhahood in one's present form is what is meant by the thus come to one's secret and his transcendental powers. Because you can go from stage 1 to being a theory to stage 6, Anuttara Sambodhi. Okay? From outside 4, outside of the attainment of Buddhahood, or outside of coming to the realization that you are Buddha and have always been, there is no secret. That was the only secret that was secret. Okay? And there are no transcendental powers, because the powers of the Buddha have always existed within you. You just haven't utilized them because you haven't revealed your highest state. And you've been ignorant of those powers as they exist in your life. Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay? The eternally endowed, that means the forever having existed within your life, 3 bodies mentioned here are gained through a single word. Why? Why is the single word faith? Or to believe? He says here you should think about it. I'll ask you.
Why?
He
为
says,
什么他们两
he
个
says
一
the
定要有一
eternally
个
endowed,
uncle？
the eternally endowed 3 bodies mentioned here are gained through a single word, and that single word is faith, or to believe. Therefore, the Sutra says, we will believe and accept the Buddha's words, chapter 16. You should stop and consider the meaning of these 2 words, believe and accept. And so the eternally endowed 3 bodies mentioned here are gained through a single word. The attainment of Buddhahood can only be attained through...
Okay, Kato just got in. Can
Hi,
you-
Kato. Hi. We're just talking about the lifespan chapter, point 2 from the orally transmitted teaching. Don't worry, we'll get into the book in a minute. Again, I ask you, the eternally endowed 3 bodies mentioned here are gained through a single word, and that single word is faith, or to believe. Okay? What does he mean by you should stop and consider the meaning of these 2 words, believe and accept? It's a really trick question. It's a very deep point. Because many people will read and believe that they have believed and accepted.
But
Yeah.
But
Action.
your actions,
yeah.
again, it's actual faith, because you cannot attain that 6th stage without
Without
faith.
changing.
Period. It doesn't work. You'll never get there. All right? And he's saying this also because we will believe and accept the Buddha's words. Now, if the Buddha has already said and taught that you are the Buddha, if the Buddha has already said and taught that these are your transcendental powers, should you consider that there must be more? or something else,
No.
then you do not believe and accept.
Okay.
That's why I was talking earlier about all I have to do is master this. Because it says very clearly, this is what I should believe. This is what I should accept. This is what I should master for the sake of propagation. This is the answer to all questions. This is my true identity. This is the true identity of all others. Okay? So, that's just what the OTT had to say. Now let's go to page 151, and here President Ikeda essentially say the same thing, I almost bet you.
Yeah.
Okay? All right. The thus come one secret indicates the Gohonzon's power. Page 151 of from the Lifespan chapter, prose section of the Heart of the Lotus Sutra by Daisaku Ikeda. Continuing with the text. At one point, Shakyamuni explains to his disciples that he is most earnest when it comes to pursuing the truth. Likewise, those who dedicate themselves to the Buddhist law should possess the eye to strictly distinguish between true and false, good and evil, correct and erroneous. The Buddha is a person who clearly states the truth, a leader who wages a struggle using words of the utmost sincerity. The truth. Yo. Did somebody say something?
No.
Sorry. The truthful words of the thus come one are words that cause people to realize profound and enduring happiness. It's not mind candy that makes them go, God, you're so smart. Okay? Its function is to not emphasize that you're correct, is to lead them to happiness. Okay? The truthful words of the thus come one are words that cause people to realize profound and enduring happiness. They lend themselves to the people realizing their true identity. That's how they find profound and enduring happiness. They become the bodhisattvas of the earth that they inherently are. Okay? In this chapter, Shakyamuni finally reveals the eternal truth in accord with which he has lived, doing so for the sake of those in the world after his passing. And in the above passage, he specifically explains truthful words as the meaning, the thus come one's secret and his transcendental powers. But what are these truthful words? You are the Buddha, and you always have been. Jiga toku burai, since I in fact attained enlightenment. I refers to all living beings. Right? Right. So, when he makes this statement, but he makes it as an expedient means, not making it as a declarative for those who lack the faith or the perception to become confused by it. Okay? All right. The thus come one's secret and his transcendental powers indicates the great teaching to be expounded in Lifespan. Shakyamuni declares to Maitreya and the others that he is going to reveal at last the secret teaching and the powers and the functions of the thus come one. Now, by saying at last, what is he also saying? I have yet to reveal them to this point. They have not been revealed to this point. Okay? I haven't told you the whole truth yet. You couldn't handle the truth. That was the point that he made earlier in the second chapter when the 5,000 people left. All right? Literally, in the context of the sutra, the secret of the thus come one is the revelation that Shakyamuni initially attained Buddhahood long ago in the remote past. This is called attainment of Buddhahood in the remote past. In other words, Shakyamuni's true identity is that of the Buddha who attained enlightenment in the remote past. Since his true identity was not revealed anywhere in pre-Lotus Sutra teachings or in the theoretical teaching of the Lotus Sutra, it is called hidden. And Because it is known only to the Buddha, it is described as intimate. This is the secret Shakyamuni finally clarifies and reveals. His transcendental powers refers to the various aspects and functions that this Buddha manifests in order to guide people and bring them benefit. In Lifespan, Shakyamuni explains that ever since he first attained Buddhahood, he has been appearing in various lands as different Buddhas, expounding a multiplicity of teachings and carrying out a variety of actions to lead people to enlightenment. In other words, the thus come one's secret indicates the Buddha who attained enlightenment in the remote past, and his transcendental powers indicates his perpetual activities to lead people to happiness. Does that describe anything other than a bodhisattva of the earth?
Nope.
That is a clear and succinct and exact
What?
description of a bodhisattva of the earth. I'll read it again. In other words, the thus come one secret indicates the Buddha, which the bodhisattvas of the earth are Buddhas that appear as bodhisattvas for the sake of revealing their Buddhahood
Right.
and revealing the true original source of their Buddhahood. All right? Who attained enlightenment in the remote past, were the original disciples of the Buddha and his true identity. Okay? We dwell in the ninth consciousness. Right?
Yes.
Okay? In the remote past, and his transcendental powers indicates his perpetual activities. That's what bodhisattvas of the earth do, lifetime after lifetime. That's all they do. They become awakened to the law. They encounter their true teacher, the true teaching. They manifest their true state, their true identity, and they seek to create that advancement for others in that process. This is all based on dependent origination, though. Indicates his perpetual activities to lead people to happiness. That's a bodhisattva of the earth. All right? From this standpoint, all Buddhas are nothing but functions of the Buddha who attained enlightenment in the remote past, right? We as bodhisattvas of the earth, right? We're the manifest bodies of the eternal Buddha. Right?
Yes.
Do you understand all that? There's
Yeah.
no separation
Separation.
whatsoever. Okay? So, in fact, we are the emissaries. We are the continuations of. You follow? There is no separation between you and the Nam Myoho Renge Kyo Thus Come One. Okay? That's why you're able to manifest the Nam Myoho Renge Kyo Thus Come One's life in your life as the manifestation of that. That's what Buddhahood actually is. Right? Taking on your true identity, which is the true identity of all things. Of all things. From the very beginning. From the ninth consciousness origin of all things. In a manifest state. Okay. Everybody's with me, right? From this standpoint, all Buddhas are nothing but functions of the Buddha who attained enlightenment in the remote past, us included. In the context of this sutra, therefore, the Buddha who attained enlightenment in the remote past is the true Buddha, while all other Buddhas who are functions of this Buddha are provisional Buddhas. Provisional here means shadow or vestige. The original identity of all Buddhas. By contrast, the implicit meaning of the thus come one's secret and his transcendental powers alludes to the law of Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, the ultimate cause behind the Buddha's enlightenment in the remote past. Do you follow that transition? It's the Buddhism of the harvest versus the Buddhism of the sowing. It's that delineation. Do you follow that? Okay? When you're talking about Shakyamuni and his original life, you're talking about the Buddhism of the harvest. When you're talking about the Daishonin and his original life, you're talking about the Buddhism of the sowing. Okay, the bodhisattvas of the earth are all disciples of the Buddhism of the Buddha of Buddhism of sowing. Follow?
Yes.
All right. So is the Buddha of the Buddhism of harvest, which precedes them. For the people of the former and the middle day of the law that don't have the capacity or the karma of the people of the latter day of the law. All right. I'll read it again. The original identity of all Buddhas. By contrast, the implicit meaning of the thus come one's secret and his transcendental powers alludes to the law of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, the ultimate cause behind the Buddha's attainment in the remote past. A state of life enlightened to Nam-myoho Renge-kyo is the true identity of all Buddhas. Okay? A state of life enlightened to Nam-myoho Renge-kyo is the true identity. I and all others that think this way, perceive life this way, are Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, thus come ones as well. That's what Nichiren has said in the preceding point 1 as it relates to point 6, stage 6. Do you follow? Shall I read stage 6 again from that to you again from the OTT?
Yeah.
He doesn't exclude himself and others. He says we're all the same. Let me go to page 124. Speaking in terms of the orally transmitted teaching on chapter 16 of the Lotus Sutra. Of the orally transmitted teaching. He says, speaking in terms of the 6 stages of practice, the thus come one in this chapter is an ordinary mortal who is in the first stage, that of being a Buddha in theory. When one reverently accepts Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, one is in the next stage, that of hearing the name and the words of the truth. That is, one has for the first time heard the Daimoku. That's the name of the truth, not the lifespan chapter. When having heard the Daimoku, one proceeds to put it into practice. This is the 3rd stage, that of perception and action. In this stage, one perceives the object of devotion, the Gohonzon, and that embodies the 3,000 realms in a single moment of life. When one succeeds in overcoming various obstacles and illusions, this is the 4th stage, that of resemblance to enlightenment. When one sets out to convert others, this is the 5th stage, that of progressive awakening. You're now practicing for Kosen Rufu and not for benefit. You understand benefit occurs in that process. And when one comes at last to the realization that one is eternally endowed with the 3 bodies, then one is a Buddha of the 6th and highest stage, that of ultimate enlightenment. Highest stage, ultimate enlightenment. Anuttara Samyak Sambodhai. Okay? All right. And he's saying, speaking of the chapter as the whole, the idea of gradually overcoming illusions is not the ultimate meaning of the lifespan chapter. You should understand that the ultimate meaning of this chapter is that ordinary mortals, just as they are in their original state, are Buddhas. That's the point, that's the point, that's the point. Okay? Yeah. That ordinary people can attain Buddhahood is at the heart of the lifespan chapter.
Yeah.
Okay? Mm-hmm. The key. The whole essence of the teaching of the lifespan chapter is about that point. Mm-hmm. All right? That's what's missed. That's why it's called as a secret. That's why it's referred to as being something that's, where do you call it? Inherent. Mm-hmm. Or where do you say it? Okay. Lifespan clarifies that the true identity of all Buddhas... pardon me, I've skipped. Implicit. Okay, pardon me. The thus come one's secret, therefore, at the bottom of page 152. The thus come one's secret, therefore, refers to the Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, thus come one. Okay? And the functions of Shakyamuni to lead people to enlightenment are ultimately the functions of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. This is the implicit, deepest meaning of his transcendental powers. Accordingly, Nam-myoho Renge-kyo is the true Buddha. And by contrast, Shakyamuni, many treasures, and all other Buddhas are provisional Buddhas who manifest functions of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. Why? Because they don't declare them to be Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. They qualify them as something other than that. Because the people they're teaching are not bodhisattvas of the earth and don't have the potentiality to be. They haven't manifested in the latter day of the law, which is the time of the advent of the bodhisattvas of the earth and those that have the capacity to be bodhisattvas of the earth. Okay? Now, any questions? Now, why is the interpretation of this passage important from the standpoint of Nichiren Buddhism? The reason is that without clarifying what the law is that originally enabled all Buddhas to attain enlightenment, that is Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, the path for all people to attain Buddhahood could not be opened. Okay, that's why after the passing of the middle day of the law, the 28-chapter Lotus Sutra that had been translated by Kumarajiva no longer was supposedly lost all of its power. It no longer had the ability to redeem oneself or to facilitate the attainment of Buddhahood. Right? Because it doesn't clarify Nam-myoho Renge-kyo in it. It only serves as the purpose and function of that clarification, even though it is the same thing. One's for the middle and the former. One is for everything after. There's no separation. They're not two different laws. Do you follow? Okay. Two different functions. That ordinary people can attain Buddhahood is at the heart of the lifespan chapter. And the thus come one's secret and its transcendental powers, the chapter's quintessence, points to the path by which one can do so. All right? Lifespan clarifies that the true identity of all Buddhas is grounded in Shakyamuni's attainment of enlightenment in the remote past. Regarding remote past, Kuan Nichiren says, this chapter, Lifespan, as a whole, deals with the true attainment in Kuan. Kuan means something that was not worked for, that was not improved upon, but that exists just as it always has. Still in Lifespan, point 19. This is the implicit meaning of remote past. As Nichiren says, remote past indicates that which exists just as it always has. Life that exists just as it always has, life in its original state, is where the actual attainment of Buddhahood occurs. And this attainment of Buddhahood is itself the secret of the thus come one. The Buddha's original state of life is identical with people's original state of life. They could not be in any way different. Fundamentally, all people are Buddhas. The only difference is that the Buddha understands this while others are ignorant of it. Therefore, it is called the thus come one's secret. Everybody understands that, right? That's what I just described. Right? Point 1? Okay, now, let me go back, though, and reread this. Not straight through. This is the implicit meaning. Okay, let me go back to what he says about Kuan, because this is really important. Right? What is that regarding remote past Kuan? Nichiren says, this chapter, Lifespan as a whole, deals with the true attainment in Kuan. Kuan means something that was not worked for, that was not improved upon, but that exists just as it always has. What could that be?
Time without beginning.
Original state, which is Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, but more specifically Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, the state, which is the ninth consciousness.
Oh, okay.
The point of all things being the same. The point of all things being the same, there not being a differentiation of realm, of manifest or non-substantiality, right? You understand what I'm talking about? So, deals with true attainment in Kuan. Kuan means something that was not worked for. Ninth consciousness is not something that's worked for. Nobody has to work to attain the ninth consciousness. It is your original state. Okay? Whether you perceive it or remember it or not. That was not improved upon. Is the ninth consciousness, pure Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, anything that needs to be improved upon? Qualified in any way? No. Okay? Exists always just as it always has. Do you get it? All right. So then he goes, this is the implicit meaning of remote past. When we think of remote past, we should think of the original state. All right? Not a past life. Because we transcend all that. Our past life is just past. I mean, there's a billion of those moments. That's not our original state.
So remote past is not about time.
No!
No.
It's a state.
It's a state.
It's a state. Because there's no such thing as time. Okay? If we get hung up in time, then we will never be able to take this out of the physical realm of Earth as something that makes sense. Okay? It has to work on a quantum level, frankly, for it to be real. For it to be in keeping with everything that we know in natural world through science and the investigative technologies. Not hocus pocus. This is not hocus pocus. This is actually a firm philosophical foundation for all of that stuff to be understood correctly.
Yep.
Okay? Even Stephen Hawking is saying now, black holes and radiation, memory in the event horizon, nothing really does disappear. I was wrong. Everybody's been wrong. Did you hear about that? He's just come up with a new explanation for black holes. A new understanding. Black holes don't go into nowhere. Okay? Stephen Hawking.
Yeah.
Just brand new in the news today. Okay. So, this is... Okay. Life that exists just as it always has. Ninth consciousness. Life in its original state. Ninth consciousness. Is where actual attainment of Buddhahood occurs. Why? The ninth consciousness is the Nam-myoho Renge-kyo that exists in all things. So the original attainment of Buddhahood is already attained. You follow? Okay. And this attainment of Buddhahood is itself the secret of the thus come one. Because nobody outside of a Buddha knows that everybody's already the Buddha. Only the Buddha has gone, God damn it, I was always the Buddha. Oh yeah, everybody else has always been, if I've always been the Buddha, then they have too.
Yeah.
Yep.
This is all part of that process of getting to that sixth stage. Okay? The understanding that comes with the sixth stage. The understanding that the Gohonzon is not a God outside of me. I am that God. If you want to call it that. Okay? Yeah. Where do you think all the power comes from? That's really not blasphemous. That's understanding the implicit
You cannot speak
truth.
this way outside of here.
That's understanding the
Because people
implicit
would
truth.
mistake you.
That's the arrogance of the Lotus Sutra. Again, you can never understand that truth and not sound arrogant. You can never state it and not sound arrogant. I am the Buddha. Wow! Who the hell do you think you are? Okay? So there's no way. There's no way. Shakyamuni couldn't. Everybody that makes that comment, they want to cut off your head the minute you say you know the truth. Oh, yeah. They want to kill you. 100% of the time. Anybody that says it. Look in history.
Yes.
Okay? And they hate you. 100% of the time. Look at history. This is an undeniable fact. If you're not willing to bite that off, you really don't have the desire to attain enlightenment. All right? This is part of the deal. You know, the Buddha understands that goes with it. That's the deal. It's like I don't have to be perfectly happy and in a mental state of like daffodils and roses all the time to be who I really am. It has nothing to do with it. That's an idealized fantasy based on delusion. Yes. Where does it exist in the real world as an example? Is that what Jesus lived? I don't believe so.
It didn't exist.
No, it doesn't
The guy
matter. I'm
didn't
saying I'm
exist.
throwing out anything. Muhammad, Krishna. I'm saying anybody. Anybody in the history of Buddhism, I can lay that one down automatically and say no. Now I'm saying, do you know other people? Maybe I just don't have a broad enough understanding of history.
So,
Lao Tzu took shit from my understanding. But the only person that didn't is Confucius. And he was already dead before he started to be respected. Think about it.
so being what we are,
Absolutely.
in this kind of
We're
world,
a magnet for difficulty. We're a magnet for, yes. That's what taking the vow was all about. If the vow was one that would be simple to fulfill, it wouldn't be the great vow. Wouldn't be called the great vow. Right? Okay, so let me continue. The Buddha's original state of life is identical with all people's original state of life. They could not be in any way different. Fundamentally, all people are Buddhas. The only difference is that the Buddha understands this while others are ignorant of it. God, sounds like what I've been saying for a long, long time.
Yeah.
Therefore it is called, but doesn't it sound so much better when Daisaku Ikeda says it? So much more authority.
Then Tom York? Yeah.
Absolutely. That's my point. That's my point. But it's the same thing. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yep.
The Buddha's original state of life is identical with all people's original state of life. They could not be in any way different. Fundamentally, all people are Buddhas. The only difference is that the Buddha understands this while others are ignorant of it. Remember that. That's the only thing you need to know about Buddhism to understand Buddhism. Therefore, it is called the thus come one's secret. Life that exists just as it always has is the basis of the principle that ordinary people are Buddhas and that the Buddha is an ordinary person. It is none other than Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. Nichiren Daishonin revealed this life of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo that exists just as it always has through his own existence as an ordinary person. I could not be who I am had he not lived the life that he had. And that Josei Toda didn't live the life that he had, and Daisaku, all those living examples, or Lloyd Sewell, or Tony Matsuoka, okay, or Ted Osaki, any of the people that have been my mentors, their lives are the only reason I'm still practicing 42 years later. Because I saw the shit they went through, so when I went through it, I didn't freak out like it didn't happen to anybody else but me. Okay? That's the function of the shit. No. The function of this shit is to be the teacher. That's why you said, I'll take that on. You think you volunteered for that because it's fun? No, you volunteered for that because of your compassion and because of your courage and because you are the Buddha. And Buddhas aren't afraid of shit.
That's faith.
That's faith. Okay? Therefore, when ordinary people such as ourselves believe in the Daishonin, and chant Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, with that belief in the Daishonin, we can open up the life of beginningless time, the life of the Daishonin, the life of Kuan, within our own lives. It's there. It's not separate from us. We only rip ourselves off if we ignore it. It's not taken away by lack of use. Okay? It's not forfeited. It's just not enjoyed. It's not exploited. That's the difference between happiness and unhappiness. That's the difference between power and slavery.
And also the difference between chanting and not chanting.
Totally. This is nothing to do with knowing anything.
Right. Just have faith.
This is all about chanting Nam-myoho Renge-kyo to the Gohonzon. It's about your practice.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's what unleashes this. That's the difference between having a philosophical conversation over theory. Okay? Nobody's life is changed afterward. One person gets to feel better because they think they did better than the other. It's not worth much in the grand scheme of things.
That's why I say believe in
Right.
Daishonin and chant.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because the truth is, if you don't chant, you really don't believe in the Daishonin. He's told you over and over and over again you must chant Daimoku.
Yeah, but I used to tell myself before
I know, this is what I'm trying to
that
put.
why am I believe so much with such a strong faith that it's not enough, but actually strong faith has to be put in action.
Yeah,
You can't
it's a moment by
say you
moment
have it, yeah.
manifestation. It's not something that's like a grade
You
that
say
you got
you
in a
have,
class.
yeah.
Okay, I got my strong faith badge on now. Because that strong faith badge is made of knowledge. It's what you know. That's why you've qualified. I have strong faith because I know so much shit.
They have exams in the local. You have to. Did you succeed? Did you pass the exam?
I think so.
What did you get? What
don't know.
position? Oh, you don't.
I don't care.
Because you even have a different clothes, huh?
Oh,
Oh yeah. You are wearing this uniform and another uniform, and yeah. If you pass the test and
Once again,
we respect you more.
Nichiren would roll over.
I don't know.
Anything that creates distinction is incorrect.
Yeah.
It implies a difference. It implies a different
We're all the
outcome
same.
or potentiality. And that
That's
is
not our
what I
teaching.
keep saying. No, it doesn't exist anywhere.
Right. That's
It
not-
doesn't exist anywhere. I can't say I've read everything, but I've read an awful lot.
That's
So
not
it
our
would mean
teaching.
that they don't trust your capacity, but it's nothing to do with.
Yeah,
Is
no,
it?
what they're doing is they're basically qualifying your capacity.
Yeah, this is
Okay.
what they need to do to trust.
But in doing so, they've now qualified your capacity.
Well, I think the local, what they meant by testing is they want to make sure you study. That's what they say. That's what they say. They don't care about your capacity or not. They just say, make sure you study, or if you come to test, you are not going to pass the test. That's what they say.
There's nothing wrong with that. Would you study if you didn't have to take the test? Many people would not.
Yep.
If they didn't create a functional activity around it, a lot of people would. They'd just come to a meeting and listen, and that's not what they're talking about. They're talking about actually breaking the books. Now, the problem is they don't ever teach anybody how to study.
Yeah, but if
Okay.
the studies,
I know. Let's not even get into that part of the
Okay.
conversation. It's academic. There's a good intent behind it, is my point. To be not disrespected or attacked. It's just, once again, if they had capable people that could explain what's being said, the degree that it's being explained to you, and I'm not being arrogant in saying that, it would be different. People would, I think they would like to study. That's why you guys keep coming year after year after year. Okay, it wouldn't be study the, activity. It would be study because I need it. I'm dying. I need my fix. Yeah. Yes, that's what this has become for me. You think I don't wear out if I'm not doing this talking every week? Yeah. I get as much out of this as you guys easily. Probably much more than you get out of this because I have to prepare. I've read everything.
We are digesting, and you have to chew.
I'm surfing on your wake, actually. Okay, so eradicating negative causality. Okay. Did I finish? Yeah.
No.
Let me just go to lifespan. I'm on the end of page 153. Life that exists just as it always has is the basis of the principle that ordinary people are Buddhas, and the Buddha is an ordinary person. It is none other than Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. That's, again, the original state, ninth consciousness. Nichiren Daishonin revealed this life of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, that it exists as it always has through his own existence as an ordinary person. Therefore, when ordinary people such as ourselves believe in the Daishonin and chant Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, we can open up the life of beginningless time, Gohonzon, within our own lives. This is the meaning of transcendental powers. Yes. Eradicating negative causality. Whew, let's get after that one. Page 154. President Toda once said, okay, now again, whenever you see this, that means that the easiest way for me to explain this is to tell you what Toda said, so I don't have to explain where it says it in Buddhism. It was Nichiren Daishonin who established the law that enables ordinary people to break through the negative causality from the past that exists in their lives and return to beginningless time in the course of their day-to-day existence. To put it another way, believing wholeheartedly in the Daishonin and chanting Nam-myoho Renge-kyo is the method for transforming destiny for the better. Through following this method, the common mortal of beginningless time appears, and the negative causes and effects formed in the interim all disappear. It's a cleaner way to think about it, right? Mm-hmm. You've got a clean hair shaft that ions attract particles that stick to the next thing you know, you have dirty hair, right? But your hair originally is clean. It comes out of your scalp, pure. Say the same thing about urine. Say about a lot of different things. Okay, the common mortal of beginningless time appears, he says. What a wonderful way of putting it. Herein lies the heart of the Lotus Sutra. These words express the wisdom of President Toda, who read the Lotus Sutra with his life and attained the realization of the Buddha, that the Buddha is life itself. By negative causality from the past and negative causes and effects formed in the interim, he refers to the countless causes and effects that bring people misfortune. However, just as the rising sun causes the stars to disappear from sight and brings on a fresh morning through faith. That's us.
Sorry.
faith, we can at once eradicate the countless negative causes and effects we have accumulated over countless eons. Just as we are, as ordinary people, we can return to the original life of the human being of beginningless time, which is totally free of karmic impurity. This is what he means by the appearance of the common mortal of beginningless time. Attaining Buddhahood does not entail the termination of the life of the ordinary mortal. One certainly does not become a being who is better than or superior to others. Nichiren says, living beings like ourselves have dwelt in the sea of the sufferings of birth and death since beginningless time. But they become votaries of the Lotus Sutra and realize that their bodies and minds, which have existed since the beginningless past, are inherently endowed with the eternally unchanging nature, awaken to their mystic reality with their mystic wisdom, and attain the Buddha's body, which is as indestructible as a diamond. How could they then be different from that Buddha? Shakyamuni Buddha, the Lord of Teachings, who said numberless major world system dust particle kalpas ago, I am the only person who can rescue and protect others, refers to the living beings like ourselves. I'm getting the high line that we're getting what?
Only 2 more pages.
Huh?
Only 2 more pages.
You want to finish 2 more pages?
No, because there's too much here I want to go over.
Okay.
This is deep stuff that really I need to point to. His reference is what he just said here actually comes from here.
Okay.
And I want you to understand that. Because he's not going to say OTT and all that, but I'm going to let you know where what he's saying is already validated in Nichiren's teachings, not
By himself.
Daisaku Ikeda's prologuing kind of. Okay?
Okay.
And it's almost, he's almost like taking it.
Explaining it.
Yeah, well, he's almost taking the OTT chapter 16 and explaining it point by point. Actually, this is going to go right back into. Okay, so we will wait.
So
Okay, I know it's
next
only 2
week-
pages, but that's about how far we got this time, isn't it? 2 pages?
Yep, about.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Kato, thank you.